We are back in Ninth Lit looking at the physician's tale. And I want to start about, if you'll turn back to 231. Remember, Chaucer died before he finished writing. So he wrote, you know how many tales he wrote? You remember?
85.
So you don't remember, 24. Yeah, maybe that's going to be easy to remember because when we get to the Inferno, there are 24 sins that are, so there are 24 sections of hell in Dante's Inferno, and they're all multiples of the number 3. So they're 9 circles, they're 3 regions, 24 sins. I don't know why the number 24, maybe that's probably, and I'm sure that's just a coincidence because he died before he finished. But what he did a lot of times, he was able to do is write these transitions between one tale and another. But he didn't do that in all cases, and that's why we had to have editors put it in the order that you see it, because some of them are not obvious. Like the Knight's Tale is obvious because it says in the text, the prologue, he's the first guy. And then whenever the nun's priest tale happens, it's obvious that well, it's not obvious that the physician is next, but there is a transition here because here follows the physician's tale. That isn't in the text, so some editor had to figure that out. Well, let me read it to you. So this is page 231. These are the words of the host to the nun. The nun's priest just told his tale. Do you remember the lesson of the tale, the moral of the tale? You remember what the moral of the nun's priest tale was? Yeah, Dave.
Lo, such it not to be on your guard against. Lo, such it is not to be on your guard against the flatterers of the world.
So basically, don't give in to flattery.
And the book is the story is much more than that. That's not all there is in the story. But remember that the host said every story has to have a moral. So that is the moral about flattery. But we talked about predestination. We talked about dreams, whether they're good or bad, and what causes them. So there's a lot in that book. So that's over, and now the host says, Sir Priest, so we're on 231, this is the transition written by Chaucer. Sir Priest, our host remarked in merry tones, blessed be your breeches and your precious stones. That was a merry tale of Chanticleer. If you had only been a secular, you would have trodden a pretty fowl, no doubt. Had you the heart, your muscles would hold out. You look as if you needed hens, I mean. Yes, more than 7 times 17. Just look what brawn he has, this gentle priest. And what a neck, his chest not the least. And as for his eyes, they're like sparrowhawks, and his complexion like a box of chalks. He need no dyes imported from the East or Portugal. Good luck to you, Sir Priest, for telling a fine tale and saying thus he turned, as you shall hear, to one of us. Now that's all. He didn't say to the physician, he said to one of us. So editors had to figure out, okay, let's put the physician's tale here. What do you learn about the nun's priest? I don't think we learned anything but from Chaucer's prologue. I don't think he was mentioned. Do you learn anything about him there?
Very strong.
Yes, he is, and which suggests to me he might be fairly young. But what's his complexion like?
Pale.
Yes. Now, do you remember the complexion of the monk? If I would ask such a specific question, do you remember what his complexion was?
Like a
And brown and
Yeah.
tan, because
Is that
that's right. And that's not where monks should be. Monks should be inside. They should be praying and studying the Word of God and all that. That's what the monks. We know that I don't think the Lord's not calling us to imitate the monks. Like we should stay inside and just pray and read the Bible. We should pray and read the Bible and then go outside and live the life. But at least he's being a good priest, a good priest as he understood it, because he's pale. He stays inside. He probably does what what a priest is supposed to do. Turn the page. Do you remember the physician? There are at least two or three things we learned about the physician from Chaucer's prologue. Anybody remember? Dave?
For one thing, I think it was described as being, skilled, but superstitious in his craft.
At least by our standards, and even though that was the typical medicine of the day, yes, he was superstitious. Yeah, he didn't read the Bible very much, but he read his professional journals. What was one other thing we said about it? That would be one thing, but something else. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but remember the other thing? He liked money. There's nothing wrong with liking money, although the love of money is the root of all evil. It seemed like Chaucer was making a point about that. Like maybe he liked it a little too much. He had a thing going on with the apothecaries. He would prescribe the medicine and they would fill it. That makes plenty of sense, but it seemed like there was a racket going on. So anyway, this is the guy telling this story here. And so let's just get started. Just to keep it straight, I usually start over here. So, Kimber, could you maybe read the first two? See what you think. Oh, you have the questions, and we'll read those first two and answer a couple of those questions.
Livy has handed down a tale to us about a knight surnamed Virginius. He was a man of honorable birth, rich, well befriended, and of sterling worth. This knight had a daughter by his wife. There were no other children in his life. Of an excelling loveliness was she, above all others that a man might see. Nature had shown a sovereign diligence in forming her to such an excellence, as if she wished to say, look, I am nature, and this is how I form and paint a creature, when so I choose. Who dares a counterfeit? No, not
Pygmalion.
Pygmalion. Though he forge and beat, color and carve forever, I maintain that Zeuxis or Apelles would work in vain to color or to carve, to forge or beat, if they presume to make a counterfeit. For he that is the maker principal appointed me his vicar general, to fashion creatures all that ever were, and paint them as I please. For in my care lies all that's under moon and wax or wane. I form them all. I do not work for gain. My Lord and I are leagued in close accord. I made her for the worship of my Lord, and so I do with all my other creatures, whatever be their color or their features. This was, I think, what nature meant to say.
All right, so let's answer those first two questions. Who is Virginius? All you have to do is read the second line and it'll tell you.
Wait, first question?
Second line. Yes.
I think we might have the wrong question.
Is it on the back?
Yeah.
I don't know why I put it on the back of this, but the story comes before the other story. That's why I added. He's a knight. If his name is Virginius, what seems to be his character?
Smart.
Which, in this case, what does that suggest?
Right.
If he's a virgin, yes. What?
Grave.
Grave? Sad? Solemn?
Huh?
You said grave, Grave. What does Virginia suggest? If that's your name, what do you think your character is?
I said grave.
Oh, brave. Well, what is a virgin? Is someone who's pure in one particular way sexually, but I think if you take that as a whole, he's just a pure, good man. And he has a daughter. And so at least in the section that Kimber read, what is her primary trait? It's not her primary trait, but it's all we know about her right now. What is her primary, yes?
She's very pretty.
He makes a point to talk about her physical beauty. You'll find out in the next line that she's 14-year-old. She's 14-year-old. Do you know anybody here know any 14-year-old girls?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Are there any 14-year-old girls here?
In here right now.
If you're not 14, then you're 15, right? So you used to be 14. So this is interesting, ladies. It's they also believe Mary was 14 probably when she had Jesus. There's no way to know that for sure. That's sort of just a surmise, but 14. I remember when I was, for some reason, of all the birthdays I've ever had in my life, I can remember 2 or 3, and I remember my 14th. It's the most vivid. I mean, I remember turning 40. That was kind of a big deal. 50. I turned 60. But I remember much about it, but I remember turning 14. I remember of all the things, I remember getting a book. And I wasn't the biggest reader, but it was a book I wanted, and I enjoyed it. I still own the book. I kept it all these years. It was a series of books Landmark put out about history. I did enjoy it. I preferred history to literature, but it was a book about the United States Marine Corps, and I devoured that book. I went over it and over it. For some reason, 14. I don't know. I was born on the 14th of March. Maybe that's, I don't know. I have no idea why that. I can remember where I was in my house. But 14 must be an important year. Yeah.
Wait, what's his daughter's name?
We don't know yet. Livy is not his daughter's name. Who is Livy?
Roman poet.
Roman poet. Yeah. All right, so let's look at this 14-year-old girl, and we'll learn that her beauty is not her most important thing. So, Zoe, you can read all of it if you want to, or part of it, and maybe Abby. Either way, Abby will read after you stop, wherever that is. Thank you. So I'm going to ask you to look at what Zoe just read and tell me some other qualities that have nothing to do with her physical beauty. There's a theme there that ties them all together, but I want everybody to find one. I don't know if I'll call on everybody, but I'm going to call on several of you to tell me some of her virtues. She has a number of virtues. All right, why don't we start with Freddie and we'll go to Abby.
She was simple in her words.
Which in this context is a compliment. Doesn't mean she's simple-minded, it's just that she can talk a lot, maybe. Yes.
She's bold. She's bold.
Let's look at that. It does say, look at what it's, turn to the bottom of 233. She was talking about going to parties and things where alcohol and all that sort of thing, sex and all that might be happening. She says, such things as these may soon too easily make a child bold and ripe, as one can see. That's very dangerous, and long has been, for all too soon she learns to play the queen and show how bold she is when she's a wife. So that's not really a compliment. She said she's not bold. Bold in that sense means being aggressive, but I'm glad you pointed it out because it's kind of maybe even impertinent to your parents, trying to run the show. Yeah, so think how up to date that is. That's something year after year, generation after talks about girls. Guys need to dress well too, but girls dressing modestly. She dresses modestly. That's why we have uniforms here. Dave.
She had the virtue of temperance. She didn't drink alcohol at all.
Yes, I'm gonna try to find where it says that. Over her mouth had never Bacchus power, for wine and youth swell Venus and desire. So there's a connection here between alcohol and immorality. And she's temperate. She does everything. She's not overboard on anything. Anything else? Yeah.
Wait, so when it says what is her most important quality, is it like her boldness?
No. We just said, we were talking earlier, she's not bold. Being bold is not a good thing in the way they use it. For a woman to be bold, that means she's being aggressive and being kind of dominating. And that would not have been a good trait, particularly in the Middle Ages. Any other thing we can say about her? She's the opposite of that. She's modest. She's temperate. She's sexually pure, chaste. Her body, she's not drinking alcohol. She's patient. She's wise. She's busy. I think that's incredible. What idle hands are the devil's playground. I don't even know if that's a proverb in the Bible, but we know that it makes sense. Being busy is a good thing. I mean, if it's a good thing for being busy at. It says that she flowered in her virginity, and that's another. Today, I don't know when it starts, but being a virgin, even the name, it sounds terrible, like it's a stigma. It's like Satan has flipped what's real and right on its head and saying, no, being not virtuous or not a virgin, that's wrong, that's silly, that's ridiculous. And notice that they make fun of that. Satan does that. To ridicule virtue is what Satan will do, so that, man, I don't want to do that. Literally, that it's become like that. Now, if you've noticed, I didn't say anything, but did you notice the host? You didn't, nobody reacted to it. I wasn't going to point these things out, but he was very kind of sexually implying things in his little speech to the nun's priest. He was talking about, because he's not married and he was chaste, he was kind of making fun of that. So that's how it works. But it says here she flowered in her virginity, which is I think really what happened. So one last thing. What does she do if there's a party and she thinks there might be some rivalry, which means some immorality there? What does she do? She's been invited to a party. Yeah.
She feigns sickness in order to.
She doesn't go. But it says that she will pretend to be sick I think that's out of modesty for the people, not to make them feel bad about it. She doesn't go. Because it says these are occasions for lascivious, lustful glances, and kind of grows people up too quickly. So all these things are, so let's summarize. What is her chief character? What is her chief characteristic?
Her great virtues.
Her virtues, her virginity, her virtues. But remember, the first description came with how beautiful she was. So you can tell where this story, I hope you can kind of suggest where this story is going. She's a very young, beautiful girl, but she's also a virtuous girl. So is that going to be part of the story? Yes, it is. That's why he spent so much time doing it. How do you achieve such virtue? Well, Abby, have you read yet? Okay, Abby's going to read the first one, and Natalie's going to read the second one. I think we have time for both of these. He's now warning the people who supervise young girls. First, the governess, which Abby's going to read, and Natalie's going to read about the parents. So you don't achieve that alone. In fact, you won't achieve it alone. If that is even a goal of yours, it won't happen on your own. You got to have help to do that. So see what she said.
And all you ladies of middle life are put in charge of the younger gentlefolk. Pray do not think I speak as to provoke. Your anger think that your appointment springs from either one or other of two things. Either that you were chaste and did not fail, regard your honor, or that you were frail. And therefore, knowing well the ancient dance, you have forsaken your intemperance forever. Teach them then for Jesus' sake, and never slacken virtue in that state. Just as a torturer who forsakes his crimes and leaves his trade and villainy behind, makes the best gamekeeper who's just a man. Keep you your charges if you will you can. Never belittle or convince advice. Unless you should pay damnation, not surprise, for those who do not rule traitors never doubt it. And so give heed to what I say about it. Top of the treason, servant, their lips, is a betrayal done on us.
Thank you. So he's talking about governesses, and you became a governess, the physician says, because you were one of two things. You were chaste and didn't fail. You would be a good example for my daughter, because you yourself were a modest, good person growing up. Or you did fail, and you weren't virtuous, but you repented, and how does it put it? You were frail, therefore knowing well the ancient dance, you have forsaken your intemperance forever. So, which makes, this is strictly your opinion, which makes the better supervisor? At Page, we used to have people, of course it was a non-Christian school, it's a public school. So the best they could do is get somebody who used to, about drug abuse. And I think they've had people up there who never did drugs and say, you can be like me, and you don't have to use them. Look at me, I was successful, got through it. Or they could have somebody up there that did drugs, and he found out that it was a terrible thing, and I'm here to tell you what I learned. Which is the more effective example?
Second one,
Why?
because they're learning from their mistakes, which, yeah.
All right, they learn from their mistakes. Yeah, Zoe.
The second one would be better because everyone that makes mistakes, you can learn from those mistakes and no one's perfect, you see how it is.
All right, I absolutely understand it. I absolutely understand that. You could definitely make an argument that if you have, in fact, that's what he does in the next paragraph. Have you seen those silly commercials? It's by a home security system, and they have this guy with a mask on, except for his eyes and mouth and his mustache. And his name is Robert Larson, and he's a security expert because he used to be in the business of robbing people's homes. And actually, I think that's probably true. These guys who know how to rob people's homes are consulted because I mean, they know how to get in, so what can we do to keep people from getting in? That makes a lot of sense. But this is a little different advice. Now he's talking to the mother and father. And so Natalie's gonna read that.
You have fathers and you mothers, let me add, however many children you have had, yours is the duty of their supervision as long as they are bound by your decision. Beware lest the example you present or you neglect and give in chastisement cause them to perish, otherwise I fear if they should do so, you will pay it dear. Shepherds too soft who let their duty seek encourage wolves to tear the lambs and sheep. One parable is enough, you understand, let me return to what I had in hand.
So what warning does he give to parents? It's right there. I mean, I'm not asking you to interpret it, I'm just asking you to, what does it actually say? Yes? Yeah. Say that again? You're 14, you're the same age, now you live in 2021, this was written in 1340, a lot of years, 700 years, but I think that principle still applies. You're not old enough to make your own decisions yet. If you have mother and father there and you live with them, then they are responsible for you. And part of their responsibility is your character, not just your safety, but your character. And they go hand in hand, because these parties that this girl didn't go to, they could have ruined her physically as well as her character. But they said, make sure you supervise your children. I know you don't like that, because you're getting old enough, you're getting close. You're almost 16, that's a big deal. 18, that's a big deal. 21, that's a big deal. Eventually, you're on your own. Nobody, no parent will be able to tell you what to do, but hopefully by that time, you'll know what to do, yeah.
Wait, for number 3, is that what we just said?
I don't know, what does it say?
What advice does the physician give to those in charge of the young and juvenile mental fault? Or is that?
That's the one that Abby read, and we did go over that. And Natalie read the one about number 4. What advice does he give us? Do we need to review this?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with number 4. What advice did we just say? What is the primary advice he gives to parents? Zoe. It's your job to keep an eye on them. They're not old enough yet to do what they want to do. It also points out, with the case of mom and dad, I know what you said, and I understand it, that if somebody, did something bad as a child and they overcame it, that's now a good example. But think about this. Your mom and dad, listen, when I was a child, this is what I did. I don't want you to do that. Well, in the back of your mind, you're saying, well, mom or dad, you did it, so I'm going to do it. It seems to me, what if your mom and dad said, I didn't do that, and I'm thankful. It seems like with your mother and father particularly, that's a really good example. Because you live with mom and dad, and if you're always remembering, yeah, but he said he did this that's the only part you're going to remember. Just because they were morally pure as children or young people, doesn't mean you're going to be. You might still reject it, but it seems like that would be that example that you as a parent, that example is just hanging out there, but you still did it. I want to do it too, and then decide for myself. Look, this book is 700 years old. It's like it's speaking to us right now. It's talking about things that you've had conversations with your parents with. I think that's amazing. Let's go back. What was the advice to those that are in charge? Those would be the governesses. It wasn't so much advice. In both cases, I think I'm fair to say that don't be too easy on them. Don't worry about being kind of, like disciplining them, because it's going to be for their good. It says, keep your charges. If you will, you can. Never belittle or connive advice, lest you should pay damnation at the price. So in other words, don't play around. Don't go to sleep on them. Same thing with parents. Don't forget you're in charge, and don't let them get away with too much. that's just really good advice. So we're going to stop there. And tomorrow, we might have some other people, but I think tomorrow, I can't think of anything, nothing to do. Look, it's blank. We have nothing to do, nothing up there. That will change next week when we come back, because we'll focus on the vocab. I might even assign it to you tomorrow, the next vocabulary. You wanna do that when they leave?
Yeah.
All right.
I thought it was just like
Yeah.
And
All
I
right,
won't
we'll
be
see
here.
you.
I won't be here tomorrow.
All right.
So. You just want me to read the, finish it on, or whatever, the one that we just did?
Well, we'll finish that, maybe start the next. You look on Google Class. You wanna do this? Let me see where we are.
Do I have to go from the very beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
What, you can do the first page. We've done 4, right?
Yeah, so, and then I added 6 more, so.
Well, that's first, yeah. Go ahead.
One that the hill with the shores of drought of March has cursed it to the root. And they that every vine is switched from one zephyr's egg which is swayed to breath, inspired hath in every wholesome hand. The tender trumpets in the youngest sumner hath in the ram his half
Oh, course, it's cool.
okay.
That's 8.
And smaller fowls make a melody. The slipping of the night was opening.
So close to the next 2. It's easier when you put it 4 at a time, but I'm proud of you. So what's next? I mean, you really, the next one, it should be the final one, I think.
Yeah.
You're not really ready tomorrow?
I don't think so. I mean, I'll definitely work on it.
We come back Tuesday. How about that? Next Tuesday?
Yeah.
All right.
Alright, thank you.
I bet he does, right?
Probably does. He's a saucy boy.